All right, welcome to The Explainer. You know, history is full of some really strange stories, but this one might just take the cake. Today, we're going to talk about how the United States and the entire British Empire almost went to war because of a pig. Yeah, you heard that right, a pig.
So let's just set the scene here. Picture this. It's August 1859. We're on this tiny little island way out in the Pacific Northwest. And it has become, no joke, one of the most tense places on the entire planet. You've got over 400 American soldiers dug in with their artillery batteries ready to go. And then, looking right at them, you have the British Royal Navy. We're talking 5 massive warships, more than 2,000 sailors and Marines, and 167 cannons, all aimed and ready. This is 2 global superpowers, literally staring each other down, just waiting for someone to make the first move.
So, you're probably thinking, okay, what happened, right? What huge international event, what major act of aggression could possibly bring these 2 giants to the absolute brink of all-out war?
Well, the answer was this pig. Seriously, that's it. A single pig. A pig that, as it turns out, really likes potatoes. Okay, so how on earth does a pig almost start a war? To get that, we've got to go back a few years. We need to look at a treaty, a line on a map that had let's just say, a major flaw.
So the root of all this trouble was something called the Oregon Treaty of 1846. Now, this treaty was supposed to be the final word on the U.S.-British border out west. It set the boundary at the 49th parallel. Nice and simple, right? Well, yeah, on land. But when that line hit the Pacific Ocean, the treaty's language got super vague. It said the border should run through the middle of the channel between Vancouver Island and the mainland. Sounds easy enough, except there wasn't just one channel.
And that's where the big problem started. See, the U.S. said, hey, the border obviously goes through the Haro Strait, which is west of the San Juan Islands. That would make the islands American. But the British said, no, it's the Rosario Strait to the east, and that would make the islands British. So for years, you had this amazing, valuable chain of islands just stuck in the middle. Both countries claimed it, but neither one could really enforce its laws there. It was total limbo.
All right, so you have this long simmering tension, this unresolved border dispute, and now let's bring back our pig. Okay, so here's what happened. On June 15th, 1859, an American farmer, a guy named Lyman Cutler, is having a really bad day. There's this pig, right? It belongs to his neighbor, who works for the British Hudson's Bay Company. And this pig keeps getting into his garden and just wrecking his potatoes. Cutler complains, but nothing happens. So finally, he just snaps. He grabs his gun, and that's the end of the pig.
And you can just imagine the argument that followed. When confronted, Cutler basically said, hey, it was eating my potatoes. The British guy's response was legendary. He said, it's up to you to keep your potatoes out of my pig. So it starts as a backyard squabble, instantly becomes a huge deal. British authorities show up and try to arrest Cutler, but he stands his ground. He says, you can't arrest me. I'm an American on American soil. And bam, now it's an international incident.
So yeah, a dispute over a pig and some potatoes is now a question of national pride, and things are about to get really serious. And just look how fast everything went downhill. We go from a dead pig on June 15th to a full-blown military crisis in less than 2 months. The Americans send in Captain George Pickett, and yes, that's the same Pickett of Pickett's charge at Gettysburg, with about 60 soldiers to protect the American settlers. The British see this and respond with overwhelming force. We're talking warships, thousands of men. By the middle of August, everyone on that island thought a war was about to break out any second.
And, the American escalation was pretty much the work of one guy, Brigadier General William S. Harney. This guy was known for being a hothead, super aggressive, and acting completely on his own, without any orders from Washington. He saw this whole pig thing as the perfect opportunity. He thought, this is it. This is our chance to just take the islands once and for all.
So you've got these commanders on the ground just itching for a fight. And back in Washington, D.C. and London, the leaders are getting word of this and, they're freaking out. They realized they had to step in, and fast, before somebody did something stupid and actually started shooting.
President James Buchanan knew that a war with Great Britain was an absolute disaster waiting to happen, so he did something really smart. He sent his top general, the legendary Winfield Scott, to go fix this. And Scott's mission was the total opposite of Harney's. He wasn't sent there to win a war, he was sent there to stop one from ever starting. His job was to find a peaceful way for everyone to back down without looking bad.
And Scott's idea was just brilliant. It was so simple. He basically said, look, instead of fighting over this island, why don't we just share it?
He proposed a joint military occupation. That way, both the US and Britain could keep a small number of troops there, a token force, and neither side would have to admit defeat. It was the perfect face-saving solution. They would just agree to disagree and let the diplomats sort out the real border way, way later.
And this is where the story takes a really fascinating turn. This temporary fix ended up creating one of the friendliest military occupations you'll ever hear about, and it worked for a long time.
How long, you ask? 13 years. Think about that. For 13 years, this so-called temporary solution held. You had British and American soldiers living side by side on this tiny little island peacefully.
And here's the best part. They didn't just tolerate each other. They became friends. It's incredible. They would visit each other's camps all the time. They'd have big holiday dinners together. Get this, the Brits even celebrated the 4th of July with the Americans. They played sports against each other, baseball versus cricket. I mean, while the American Civil War is tearing the rest of the country apart, these guys on this remote island created this little bubble of peace. It's just amazing.
So finally, after all that time in 1871, the US and Britain decided it was time to settle this for good. They agreed to let a neutral third party make the final call. And who did they pick? Kaiser Wilhelm I of Germany, of all people. So the Kaiser looks at all the maps, all the arguments, and on October 21st, 1872, he makes his decision. The border goes through the Haro Strait. The San Juan Islands officially belong to the United States. End of story.
So let's tally up the final score here. After a 13-year standoff that nearly started a war between two of the world's greatest powers, the total number of human casualties was 0. Not a single person was killed in combat. The only casualty in the entire pig war was the pig.
So what does this story about a pig from 1859 teach us? Well, it's a pretty wild lesson, isn't it? It shows just how quickly a tiny, silly dispute can spiral out of control because of national pride and a few hot-headed commanders. But I think, more importantly, it's this incredible example of de-escalation. It shows that even when you are staring down the barrel of a gun, there can be a peaceful way out. It's a powerful reminder that cool heads and smart diplomacy can prevent a catastrophe, especially when the whole thing started over something so completely, utterly absurd.